Hey everybody, what is expected in Milestone 4? So this is the proof video. It's not going to take you very long at all. So if you dealt with Milestone 4.1 Active Directory LDAP-S SSO provider, all you need to show me is the fact that you are logged in as your name at your domain, and that solves that proof. Pretty straightforward. So on deliverable 2, so we extracted this Server 2019 image by hand. I showed you how to do that. I also showed you how to create a link clone on Ubuntu 22.04 using interactive PowerShell and PowerCLI. You should be able to develop a script that does that. So I'm going to run some code right now that's going to extract a BIOS-based image from 480 firewall, and I'm also going to do that for my Ubuntu WAN. All right, so let's give that a shot. Now, your code does not need to be this fancy. As I mentioned before in the previous video, it can be procedural. You can essentially take those commands that I showed you by hand, type them into a PS1 file, and add some variables at the top. Maybe you're going to have some inputs, that sort of thing. You might be really slick and have some default variables that you pull out of a configuration file. Totally up to you. So let's give this a go. So I read my variables from a configuration path called 40utils.json. I can show you that in a second. Whoop. Oh, I need to import it. So let's see. I need to do a dot import. There we go. So it's reading the fact that vcenter.hermione.local is my default, so I can just hit enter, right? So my VMs, the VMs that I want to extract are sitting in my prod folder currently. So I'm just going to change that to prod. Okay, so I think I'm going to start with number 4. I'm going to do a full clone of the base snapshot, and I'm going to run it on my ESXi 7.11. And this is the default data store that I'm going to use. I name everything this way, capital BASE for the base snapshot. And we're going to call this BIOS base. So you can see it's creating that BIOS base linked, right? And then it's asking me if I want to delete that link clone, and I do in this case. And I go the extra mile to add it to a network, a default network. I'm going to add it to VM network. Let's see if this works. It didn't last time. So it's going to leave it as at the default network. I got to figure out what's going on with my code right there. It's probably that space that's an issue, but I'll sort that out later. But in the end, I have this BIOS base image. Let's look at it. And even though that didn't work, right? Both network adapters are tied to VM network by default. That's what it will do. I'm going to drop it into my base VMs, and I'm going to take a snapshot called base. And let's do that. Let me make sure my Ubuntu box actually has a base VM. I hope it does. Yeah, it does. So I can do the same thing again. Sure. Prod. It's going to be Ubuntu. Full clone. Sure. Yep. Base. I'll call it Ubuntu base. So while this is running, you're just going to want to show me your code, and it would be great if you could show me a run. well, actually do that. So you would delete one of your base VMs and show me your code executing sort of like mine is now. Okay, so that's 4.2, right? Oh, I promised I was going to show you my JSON file. I'll do that in just a second. So on 4.3, you should have built this Ubuntu base image according to the instructions, and then you should have an AWX server, right? And it should have an IP address on your 480 WAN, right? So that's it. That's it for this milestone. Make sure that in your video walkthrough, you show me the documentation that supports the milestone. Okay, and please discuss any issues you may have had. I'm going to show you this JSON file. By the way, I'm not showing you my code. Yeah, I may change that later. Cat 40 utils.json. Yeah, so this is just these are the default variables that I'm using and reading from. These could be just in your PS1 file as PowerShell variables. That's totally fine as well. Feel free to experiment, right, and be creative. So I wish you luck on this milestone. Goodbye now.